नमस्कार, लोक गाथा में आपका स्वागत है। आज का यह पॉडकास्ट बड़ा ही विशेष पॉडकास्ट है, कारण कि आज के हमारे अतिथि भी बहुत ही विशेष है। आज के हमारे अतिथि है यज्ञ देवम जी। यज्ञ देवम जी की रुचि भारतीय सभ्यता जैसे सरस्वती सिंधु सभ्यता या ढोलावीरा आदि सभ्यताओं में इनकी रुचि है, वह इनका संशोधन भी बड़ा ही विशेष है, जिसकी जानकारी आप सभी को अजय जी देंगे। तो मैं अजय जी से निवेदन करूँगा कि वे दर्शकों को आज के पॉडकास्ट के विषय में और जो आज हमारे साथ अतिथि जुड़े हैं, उनके विषय में थोड़ी जानकारी दें। अजय जी, जय श्री राम। जय श्री राम यज्ञदेवम जी।
Jai Shri Ram.
Namaste, Jai Shri Ram. So thank you for inviting me again and welcome Yajna Devam to the Lokgatha podcast. We finally got you to actually do this finally. It's been months of discussion. Anyway, so let me get into the brief description of Yajna Devam's research and what exactly are we going to discuss today. Ever since the discovery of the Sindhu Saraswati Valley civilization, which is popularly known as the Indus Valley civilization, which is already more than 100 years ago now, understanding the writing system of the ancient people has been a matter of academic debate. Deciphering the Indus script will provide insights into the culture of these people and also their language, and uncover a large chapter of Indian history which is lost to time pretty much. It is a matter of curiosity whether Indus Valley civilization was Vedic in nature. So it naturally begs the question if the Indus script was actually used to write Sanskrit in those times. And can we find the continuity of the Indus Valley civilization in later settlements across in the Indian subcontinent? These are the questions that we want to ask. Did the Brahmi script develop its abstractions from the Indus script, etc.? So several scholars have attempted in the past to answer these questions and more questions regarding the civilization in general. But today we have Yajna Devam, one such scholar who has a background in cryptography and computer science, who has attempted to decipher the Indus script as a cryptogram. So without taking much time, I will ask Yajna Devam to start his presentation, and I will let his work speak for itself. Yeah. Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you, Ajay, and thank you, Vedant, for inviting me and giving this introduction. So let me start with the presentation. So I'm on Twitter and YouTube. You can just search for my name. You can follow me. We will keep creating more videos and information and so on. My papers are on academia. You can follow this link and follow my research from there. So let's start with what you will learn from today's presentation. You will, by the end of this presentation, you will know a little bit of the background of what the Indus civilization is and how it developed and it declined and so on. The script and a little bit of its history, a cultural continuity of the Indus Valley to present day, how the script was deciphered, some interesting inscriptions, and how you can be confident that this decipherment is correct among the more than 100 decipherments that are already out there. So the Indus Valley civilization, it was one of the premier Bronze Age civilization. It was the biggest civilization in Bronze Age history in that time. It was bigger than all the other civilizations combined, minus China. It was spread along this area that you see on the map, what is today the what straddles the border between India and Pakistan. So the Sapta Sindhu region. If you look at all the little green triangles, those are the original Neolithic sites. This is where people first settled down, domesticated animals, started doing agriculture. The Meghad is the oldest one at around 7500 BCE. That's about almost 10,000 years ago. We also have Birana, which is in Haryana, which is around the same time. And then as time passes, you get more Neolithic sites, and eventually these sites develop into actual settlements and actual cities. When I say cities, I actually do mean cities with planned streets and houses and threshing areas and walls and everything. On the right side, you see the locations of the sites. You'll see a very dense cluster right in the center. That is the what is presently called Gaggar Hakra River, but researchers have proven that it's the Saraswati River. So they have the Paleo Channel. They have all the different uh, historical sites over there. Some very old sites like Kalibangan are on this riverbed. As you look a little more to the west, you see Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and all these sites, which are kind of spread out. But the big focus, the big concentration is actually along the Saraswati River. If you look at the timelines of the Indus Valley, you saw that it started in the Neolithic phase in 7500. But over time, the top left map here shows at the start of the mature phase around 2600 BCE, the sites where you had a lot of concentration of sites in Gujarat, Haryana, and you had scattered sites in Sindh and Balochistan and essentially northwest of the Indian subcontinent. Over time, the sites in the desert area start to disappear. People abandon it, and the sites in the Ganga, near the Gangetic plain, if you see in the center top, they start proliferating, and these are still Indus sites. Soon, and at the very end, you see, even Gujarat gets abandoned, and you only have essentially the Ganga Valley. This is about late phase. This is around 1300 BC to about 700 BC. And at the same time, if you see on the right half, you have the painted graveyard. These are the Iron Age sites. And you will see some of the sites are essentially the same. They have converted from the Indus to the Iron Age. So from Bronze Age site to Iron Age sites. Some sites have been around for a really long time. So the sites like Kunal have been around from 4000 BCE to 800 BCE. So from the very beginning to the very end of the Indus Valley, essentially from the time it was Hakraware. Hakraware essentially is named after Gaggar Hakra, which is that river. So the pottery found there. So that pottery style changes, but nothing else changes in the civilization. It's a continuous civilization. It's not a different culture that's come in or anything. They just change their technology. And over time, they even went into the Iron Age, and they were still, that site was still occupied till 800 BC. So it's a very long, continuous settlement. But what you see is over time, the desert areas are abandoned, and people flock to the areas that are closer to the Himalayas. Now the question is, why did they do that? They did that because of climate change. So Saraswati started drying up around 2500 BCE. So the Kalibangan, which is one of the major sites, is actually abandoned at 2500 BC, which is the start of the mature phase, start of the peak of the civilization. But the civilization continues in other sites, and one by one, the sites are abandoned. So recent research shows that the 4.2 kilo-year event, which is a global event of cold and dry climate, which started around 2200 BCE, caused a dip in rainfall, caused severe drought in this region. And if you see on the right there, you see three bands of basically no rain. The widest one is 90 years of no rain. So essentially, the Indus sites in the desert, they depended on the water from the wells, and they were close to the rivers so that the aquifers would get refilled. But when you have a drought for 90 years and essentially over 250 years of drought, the wells will also be empty. So they had to abandon it. And the second thing that happened was the Indus Valley civilization, which was a Bronze Age civilization. They had bronze technology. They were trading with Mesopotamia and Israel and all this other Egypt. That trade collapsed because in 1900 BC, tin was discovered in Cyprus. And once tin was discovered there was no need to import the bronze from Indus Valley. Indus Valley had tins from Aravalli and Afghanistan. And the Mediterranean cultures did not need to import tin from here. So the economically there was it was infeasible to carry on these sites. And the technology also had changed to iron in the Deccan and in the Gangetic plains. So the Deccan had iron before 2200 BC, and Ajay may know in Kudremukh near your place, even 50 years ago, the mountains were essentially pure iron. You just iron requires a much higher temperature to smelt. You need bellows and all that. But Kudremukh was so rich, it's a lot easier to get iron there. So Iron Age started there, and the technology spread to Gangetic Plains by 1800. So the center of economy had moved from the Indus and Saraswati Plain to the Gangetic Plain. So the population pretty much shifted. And we know from the pattern of migrations, this is through the pottery and genetics and so on, that migration started around that time, 2500 BC, 3000 BC. People started moving to the Deccan and to the southern Neolithic complex. The southern Neolithic complex was integrated with the Indus Valley. We know that because some of the artifacts, some of the cups were made of a stone that is only found in what was then called Mysore state when the report was written in the pre-independence. So they were integrated, and but what this map shows is the movement out from the Indus Valley around the same time as the climate change. So that is the overview, and people. Many are familiar with the continuity of the Indus civilization with modern day. And so if I ask you guys, what do you think? Does this remind you of anything, this picture?
Mahabharata, the famous game that was played
Right.
between Pandavas and Kauravas.
Correct. This is the game of dice. And this is, there are variants of this game. This is called Ludo, Pasici, and a few others. There are, so, and this phrase is really from Chandrakirtugad in West Bengal. So the cultural continuity can be seen in many different ways. This on the left is the dancing lady sculpture. It's a metallic bronze sculpture who is wearing the bangles over her upper arm, which you can see today in ladies in Rajasthan wear it in the same style. This is a figurine made of clay, and it has hair painted black. It has a little sindoor. If you see the red thing between the hair parting there, you can actually even make out a little dot on the forehead, and you can see the jewelry style. And all of these traditions are present today. The jewelry in the same style is present. Sindoor is present. Essentially women have preserved the culture of jewelry. So, if your wife buys jewelry and empties your bank account, she's only doing it to preserve culture. So don't be upset, okay? This is another ornament that the Indus Valley people used, which is still used today. On the left is a wedding, couple at their wedding, and they're wearing something similar. This is Indus seal on the left, and on the right there's a little statue from Indus peripheral site. And what you see is it's very faint, but you can see that they're wearing upavita. You know what yajnopavita, right? What's called Jenu in Hindi. It's kind of faint, but you can actually see it. I should have drawn little dots under it, but you can actually see the thing if you observe it. This is a motif on the left. It's an Indus seal. It shows 3 goats looking in 3 directions. So one is looking at the past, one is looking at the future, one is looking at the present. The same motif is in the Lepakshi temple in Andhra Pradesh. And here it's a bull, but the motif is the same, and it's in Shiva temples. So Shiva is Trikaladarshi, you can see past, present, and future. And this is a symbolic representation of the concept. There are many yoga figurines. I just picked one, this is Vrashasana. These look like vessels that could be in your home, in your grandmother's home, but these are actually from Indus Valley. These are actually from Mohenjo-daro, and they look like they could be in your home today. Bullock carts you've all seen. Nowadays, I don't know if they still have these bullock carts, but the same style of carts there were figurines of those in Indus Valley. So now let's start. So this is just an introduction to the cultural continuity. So everything is continuous, and we have to see, what else they had. So these are some of the kind of artifacts. This is just a representation of a different kind of artifacts. There's really a lot more, but this is enough to fit the screen. On the left, you see a square Indus seal, which is a kind of iconic. That you have an animal, and the unicorn is the most prolific animal. It's the most numeric animal in all the seals. On top, there's what looks like some writing, which is called the Indus script. And in front of the animal, there is some object. They call it the cult object. And sometimes there's a feeding trough and so on. On the top, there is a long seal without any animal in it. It's just writing. In the center, there is a swastika seal that doesn't have any writing. It's just a design. And there's a pottery shard which has some writing on it. So these are the kind of artifacts that they have unearthed from the Indus sites. So what is the writing? So the writing is what we call the Indus script. There was a little delay in the
I think
what slide are
you
you
should
guys looking at?
We are looking at the artifact slide now. I think you should go to the next slide. Yes, Indus script. Now we can see this.
Right. Yes. So Indus script is one of the oldest scripts, and the script on the top there is from a shard of pottery that the professor for Indus studies in Harvard claimed it's from 3500 BC. So recently I've seen entry in a database that puts it to the third period, which would be like 1,000 years later. But I'm assuming this person knows what they're talking about, and this is the oldest writing. And this, if you see the shapes, they're already abstract. So it takes a long time for a script to turn from pictography to abstract. So my estimate is that this writing really started around 4000 BC, and eventually we have artifacts that are preserved from 3500 BC and so on. Now this script was also in megalithic sites up to 50 CE. So you may have heard, Indus script stopped being used at 1900 and so on. No, 1900 they stopped making seals, but the script continued to exist. And this on the left we have Sanur in Tamil Nadu, and you actually have legible script there from 50 CE. In the center you have Kiradi in Tamil Nadu, and they have scripts from 600 BCE. They actually have it in 3 layers. You have only Indus at the bottom layer, and as the time passes, you get a mixture of Indus and Brahmi, and on the top, you only get Brahmi. On the right, you have some coins from Chandraketugad, which have Indus symbols on them from 300 BC. So north, south, east, this script was everywhere. Okay. In addition, on Qutub Minar, we found some of these Indus symbols. And on the right, you have the Bijar Gamchogai, which is the northwest Iran, close to Armenia and Georgia. You have Indus Brahmi mixed script. And the bottom there is a Bet Dwarka, which also is readable as Indus. So these,
So,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I can interrupt you during the talk, or should I keep the questions for later?
You can keep the questions for later, so that we can have a long discussion. Okay. So these artifacts, these are actual Indus-style seals, and they were found at Altin Tepe, which is Turkmenistan, South Central Asia. And they are very similar to the seals from Indus. So in fact, it's pretty much, it's very apparent that their culture was influenced very strongly by the Harappan culture. These seals actually are from Mesopotamia. So in Mesopotamia, Bahrain, you find seals. Most of them don't have writing. So there's some 300 seals. Indus-style seals, most of them don't have writing. About 27 have writing. And they use the same Indus symbols as the Indus Valley. So let's talk about decipherment. This particular inscription you see is called the Dholavira signboard, because unlike all the other inscriptions which are on seals and little tablets, like 2 by 2 inch or something like that size, this is a huge signboard. This is like a meter tall and so many meters wide. So it was a signboard to be visible from a large distance. So this is one of the reasons many researchers were pretty sure this is for writing. This is a writing. This is for some information, and it's not just random, some trade-related tokens. So what is the Indus script problem? So Indus script is considered undeciphered for 100 years, but it's also considered the most deciphered script, and also has the most number of languages that is deciphered as. Now, all of these decipherments are non-falsifiable. So if you're familiar with the scientific term, a falsifiable statement is something like that there is a way to disprove it. A non-falsifiable statement is something like, I'm either hungry or not hungry. You cannot decipher it. You cannot falsify it. So science is a set of falsifiable statements. All non-falsifiable statements, you don't really, they don't come in the realm of science. They can come in the realm of like history, philosophy, or anything else, but you cannot call it science, and you cannot take it as a fact, and you cannot build a theory on it. Most of these decipherments from other, they cannot be reproduced. Like if I give a set of principles to someone and say from one of these prior decipherments and say, hey, this is how we should decipher it, they may not come up with the same values. Okay. And most of them can only read short inscriptions meaningfully, and that also is not 100% accurate, because they don't really read it as it's written. They like the reading is very what to say, it's so flexible that you can read it anyway. The signs are classified in different ways. Some people, Mahadevan, I think, has classified as 417, Epigraphica is classified as 719, and so on. So essentially there's a big range on what people think a sign is. Okay. So out of these, you can see there's around 70 to 100 signs are base signs, the rest are composite. Composite means you have, like if you have A and E and you smush them together, you get that character A, that's what the rest of them are. So how did I approach this problem? So if you guys are old enough to remember newspapers used to have this puzzle page. You would get this crossword and this and that, a bunch of stuff. And one of the things you would have is what's called a cryptogram, which you see here on the right. So cryptogram is essentially a message in a known language that is written in an unknown script, and you have to deduce how that script works. This is what a cryptogram is. Now, newspapers, they don't create their own script because it's not practical to do one every day. So they do what's called a single substitution cipher, which means that they just assign a different value to alphabet, and they just write it with the new arrangement. And these can be solved. So this is a cryptogram that I have found on the internet and I have solved. And the black is the puzzle, the blue is the solution. And you can solve it in different ways. You can guess what a short word is. You see if the 3-letter words are like common words like the, and if it's a single letter, you can guess it's A or O or I, and so on. So there are different ways to solve it, but people who know a little bit of programming, they can solve it very easily using what's called regular expressions. So a regular expression is essentially a pattern that that you can detect in the words. So in this particular example, I have solved the word millennium. You can see there near the bottom left. So what I've noticed is that the fourth letter is the same as the third letter, and the last letter is the same as the first letter. So you can see on the top in the red, I have written the regular expression to capture that pattern, LOBBHRROWL. So any word that matches this pattern, regardless of what the actual values are in the solution, this will find it. And there's only one word matching this, and that's millennium. And when I fill in millennium, it will give me the values for the words where these letters are used. And from there, I can see now I have to only solve 1 or 2 letters in the next in the next word. So for example, like BHN, if I know that it starts with L and E, then the third letter could be only T. There's not really a lot of words that start with LE, 3-letter words. So once I get N equal to T, I can put that in the second word there, which is LORWNHX. And now I only need to, so I have minute there, and then I have an X. So it's probably a plural, minutes, so X is S. So from there, I can go one by one and solve the whole thing. So this is just how you solve the cryptogram. It's fairly well known. I mean, at least in anybody who was born before 1980, or they know this, but newer generation, like I said, probably doesn't is not familiar with newspaper, so they may not know it. So the way I solved it is essentially to find patterns that can only fit one word. So first is the jar sign, and it's un, and using that I could solve the stick sign, which is a, then the bow sign, which turned out to be the. So I'm using just a Sanskrit dictionary, downloaded dictionary. In the previous example, we were using English dictionary. Here, I just use a Sanskrit dictionary. So on, you get all the values. Okay. Once you get all the values, if you arrange it by the symbols the signs that have the same sound value, and then you look up the dictionary for something, for a word that could that could be representation of this. So you get these words under the column name. And what you see is they're very, very close. Like Varti is close to Varati, is very close to Vati. So it's as if, when they're, this is the invention of writing itself. So when they made an agreement and they orally told someone, hey, to denote verb, we're going to use Varti. When it got transmitted to the person who eventually inscribed it, he heard it differently. And that's why you have multiple signs for the same sound value. And you can see the lamp wick, you can see that I have a little photograph of a wick, which is a ball and a thread coming out of it. And similarly for squirrel, you have that, so it's kind of like once you search the dictionary, it's kind of obvious that what it is. Usually there's only one. that matches it. Sometimes there is two words, but so once I noticed the va is very similar to Brahmi, the is very similar, essentially identical to Brahmi. So I took all the words that are common and I created this to see what is the chance of that, they have evolved from it, and it's pretty much identical. There's very, very little changes. There's some simple rotation, some reflection. There's not even any derivation you need to do. So from this, we can conclude that because they had so many signs, they eventually standardized it and it became Brahmi. So one of the other things we see mixed Brahmi and Indus inscriptions. So on the left here, Marungur, this is 200 BCE. On the right, the one in the center, the last symbol is an Indus symbol. The first two symbols are Tamil Brahmi, and in the middle, it's actually a version of her that is also attested in Indus inscriptions. On the right, you have, it's a little hard to see, it's a gold flake from Vietnam, but it's written Varaha in Brahmi script, but the ha is it's an Indus symbol. So there are many of these mixed inscriptions, and some of them are obviously Sanskrit, except one or two letters you couldn't read it before. But when you put my decipherment and put it in there and use it to read the inscriptions, you can read it meaningfully, and in general, it's grammatically correct as well. Okay. So how do you know this is right? How do you know that what I have done is correct? Can you force any language? Like, so can I do this again and get the result as English or something else? So this is a question I get asked a lot, and the answer is no. For example, let's take the Japanese alphabet, assign English letters to it, and this is just the order of the Japanese alphabet from Wikipedia, and the order of the English alphabet from this is order. So I've not done any kind of rearrangement. And if we do this, whenever we see that particular Japanese symbol, if we read it as A or B, can we read a Japanese newspaper as English? So why don't maybe Ajay answer this? Do you think it's possible?
No, it's not possible.
It's not possible. Do you know why?
No, actually, I do not.
Okay.
This is interesting.
I'll tell you why. So this, below that table, you see a Japanese sentence. This is actually a poem from around 700 BC. This is, I think, from the Nara period of Japan. It's a very famous poem. The original poem was, of course, written in kanji, but kanji has 3,000 letters, so we cannot do this example. So I've changed it to hiragana, which is one of their newer alphabets. And I have used this translation to render it in English, which you can see at the bottom. And this is unreadable. I mean, this is not even meaningfully readable. This is completely unreadable. And the reason is because you cannot, assign something and hope to read it. Okay, so let's say that, hey, you know what? You just took the traditional sequence. Can you shuffle it around and get it? Okay. So let us see if you guys can figure out how many ways this can be shuffled around. Do you want to guess, Vedanta, Rajay?
How many times what can be shuffled? The Japanese characters?
Like how many permutations of these alphabet can I create?
That's huge, right? 22 to the power 26.
Right. So the first one, the letter A, you can, that position you can choose 26 ways. The next one you can choose 25 ways. Next one you can choose 24 ways, and so on.
And 26 from you, 26. It's huge.
Well, it's actually 26 factorial, but you're right. It could be 26 to the power, to the power 26. But let's consider 26
Yeah.
factorial. 26 factorial is 4 into 10 to the power 26. Okay. So even if you could, and how much is that? 4 into, so there's such a large number that even if you could create this table, look up the dictionary, verify it is all correct, all through computers. If it takes you a millisecond to do it, to do one trial, it would take longer than the lifetime of the universe to compute all factorial 26 combinations. In fact, it would take you the lifetime of 1,000,000 universes to do it, okay, to brute force it. So it's not feasible to say I'm going to brute force it and find something that matches But you could be a little more clever, and you could say, hey, I'm going to use regular expressions to do it. Okay. Now the problem is, you see that second output word there, JZ, JE, JEM. That pattern where you have three, the first letter repeats 2 more times, and for the second and third repetition is also followed by the same letter. That pattern, a word matching that pattern, does not exist in English. So there is no way that you can find an English version for this, even if you try all 26 factorial times. That pattern doesn't exist in English. Now, it may exist as a borrowed word because Spanish and Polish and Swiss German, they have words that match this. But let's say you do that. So what will happen is, other words with J, for example, the last word there, JTUFFQS on the first line, the last word, there you would not find a word that matches this, because whatever you assign to J, you will not find a word there. Even if you find that, that FF there, you need a repeated word, repeated letter, you won't find a word with those letters matching the word before it, which is that the same value FUF. So whatever you would assign, so you are not going to find. So eventually you will hit a dead end, and you will have to figure something else out. Okay, so this is why a cryptogram is solutions are very unique. And the reason you don't find those patterns is because of the distribution of the words in the space. So on the left, you see the number of words in English by number of letters. So for the letter 7, for 7-letter words, there are about 7,000. For 6-letter words, there are about 6,000. Okay, in a kind of reasonable size dictionary. And if you compare like the symbol space, so in a symbol space, you can have, if it's 1 letter, you have 26. If it's 2 letters, you have 26 into 26. If you have 3 letters, you have 26 into 26 into 26. So only a fraction of those are actual words. So on the right, you see the red area. That's the fraction of the words that are legal. And that blank area is the set of symbol combinations that are not words. Okay. So the probability of you hitting, being able to find something with the same combination, same arrangement of letters, same pattern, is very, very low, because pattern of a word in one language is a complete random number in the world. This is nothing to do with phonemes. This is to do with whatever phoneme you assign to the symbols. It's to do with their pattern and their position. It's a complete random number in a different language. So here we see, I don't know how clear this is visible, but essentially we have mapped the patterns, 4-letter words on English and German. Okay, so blue is English, red is German, and as you can see, they cluster around vowels and digrams and trigrams. So digram is like common sequences like ST, TH, and so on. And so they cluster around that, and you see, it's, by the way, this is very, very sparse. Each dot has been magnified so that we can see it, but really it's very, very far apart. And you see near the XYZ on the horizontal, on the top, you see empty band. Near Q, you see empty band. Similarly, vertically near the Q and the R and the Z, you see empty bands. There's nothing there. So to read English as German, you imagine all the red dots are on one plane and all the blue dots on another plane. You would have to move the red dots so that they align with the blue dots. And again, as I said, because they're so random, it's pretty much impossible. So now the mathematically, so what I've shown you something visually to make you understand it, but mathematically also we can prove it that a cryptogram has a unique solution. So here we have two graphs. The first one encodes Sanskrit words, second one encodes English words, and they follow the same, we have created the same pattern. Okay, so here you could read those Sanskrit words as English in this example only. Okay, and we have done that because we have kind of, we have put IYE all as the same. We have assigned the same to all of them to the same symbol. Okay. So if a inscription only had these symbols, whatever the symbols are, whether it's Latin letters or Indus symbols or something else, if they only had these 5 words, I could read it as English. Okay, because it's such a small set. But in a very large set, so if the number of edges and vertices increases, so in Indus inscriptions, for example, you have something like I think 18,000 edges and 73 vertices. It's a very huge graph. You cannot even imagine doing it, and doing that computationally would be solving something called a subgraph isomorphism problem. This problem is NP complete, and if you solve it, you have proven P equal to NP. You should go straight to the Clay Institute and get your $1 million prize.
Okay, sorry, that was a nice joke.
So you can still do it though. So people ask, but what about this person has deciphered this person has deciphered this in the script. How is he making all the readings? So they do it using what's called degenerate cases. So in a degenerate case, what happens is the most common. There are a few tricks you can do, and the most common trick is every sign is its own word. Okay, and they may justify it in different ways. They may say that it's actually made up of this and this, or it could be like logographic here. So by the way, all of these things they are actual readings by people who try to decipher it, big names. So Mahadevan, for example, called something chicken ford. Okay, and Parpola called something pregnancy bangles. Okay, so if you just make up your own words, and you can interpret anything as anything, but his interpretation is no better than mine. I could make up my own words for it, right? So it's what's called a non-falsifiable decipherment. It's essentially useless. There's another way to do that, which is you make it a complete graph. Like every vertex can talk to every vertex, and you assign all the symbols to one of these 4. So such a thing doesn't exist in English, but it exists in Sanskrit. So I have found this Dara Vasa. You can have all combination of words, and you can read it. Okay, but this is also not a it's not a credible decipherment. I mean, there are other tricks as well, which I haven't documented here. But for example, you decipher it in your own language. You just call it Middle Indo-Aryan or some Proto-Dravidian, something like this, some made-up language, which no one knows the grammar, no one knows the vocabulary, and you say, okay, this sounds like that word in Sanskrit, so it must be this, and you make that up. And one more thing I've seen is people have assigned word fragments to the signs. So you have the, and you have ra in the beginning and the end. In the middle there's a symbol. They try to find whatever fits there, and sometimes they may say the middle symbol is irava, and they say, okay, the whole word is dirava, because they have assigned this fragment of a word to the symbol. Now, in no writing system in the world, you have signs that represent fragments from the middle of a word. You have for some prefixes, you may have for suffixes, but random fragments that can be used only like in 4 different words, no one creates a sign for it. It's not economical. And even if such a thing existed, that kind of writing system would need to have hundreds of thousands of symbols, okay, which of course Indus doesn't have. And many of these previous decipherments make use of all of these fallacies, and they claim that and they mix it up. So that is essentially why they are not credible. But this, once you understand the math behind it, you'll understand why they are incorrect. They're where they are going wrong, and why this decipherment is correct. Okay, so that's good. So we've seen what the Indus script is, how it's deciphered, what is correct, but what is written in the inscriptions. So that would be interesting. The first is the Dholavira signboard, and it reads Raka Vararaka Araras. So Raka is a crystal, Vararaka is the choicest crystal. Later it comes to mean diamond, and Arara is a door. And you see the pattern of Ras that uses alliteration. It's a very popular thing they used to do in Sanskrit. There's a lot of verses that have alliterations. They use the same letters over and over. So Rakavara Rakararas, it means the gem of chosen gem sentence. And my guess is that gem of chosen gems is the sun. And also I think the like today's Dwaraka could be Dwara Vararaka, and it became Dwarka later. So even Dholavira, the word changes is the same. The la and ra, are is a common reflex. So Dholavira could also be Dwara Vararaka. So this is I had translated all of these signs, but I could not really understand them until on Shivaratri I saw this and I realized it's from Sri Rudram. Right? So, it's, you have the Yata Ishuhu Shivatama and Yastamro. Yastamro is who is red. And, so you calm Shiva by saying Sri Rudram, you calm his arrows. That's the first verse. So I realized this is a reference to Yajurveda, Krishna Yajurveda, Sri Rudram. So then I started looking at all the other inscriptions, the long inscriptions. The short inscriptions are just words. It's hard to justify any kind of reference. But the long inscriptions, pretty much, on Twitter, I have tweeted about, I think, 20 of them. But pretty much all of them refer to, Rigveda. So here, this is reference to Soma. This is more references to Soma. Here, this is about drought and rain. Okay, so drought and rain, as we saw earlier, it was a big problem for them, right? So some more references. This is, do you guys recognize what this is? No?
Two brothers fighting for a lady, two Rakshasas, and God becomes a lady, and they said, I will marry the one who is strongest, I guess.
Okay, so it looks like you have fought over some ladies before. Okay, that's good. This is the story of Sunda and Upasunda. This is the Puranic story of Sunda and Upasunda. And this was recounted in Mahabharata to the Pandavas when they married Draupadi, saying that you should not fight each other because, a woman should not be able to break up brothers. So Sunda and Upasunda were brothers. And they were, through tapasya and all, they had got all these powers, and they had got the boon that they will not die except each other's hands. Okay, but they were very close. They were very sure they're not, that's not never going to happen. And they did all kinds of, violence and all that. So on the left is the Indus seal version of the story, and the right is the same thing from a temple in Cambodia. Okay, so what Brahma did is he created Tilottama. Tilottama means perfect in every atom. Okay, so Tilottama was sent, and Tilottama was so beautiful that these guys for the first time are not willing to share. And Sunda holds one of her hands, Upasunda holds another one of her hands, and they start fighting. So this is a very unique story, and it can be represented in only this way. Think about it. You have a woman, and you have two men grabbing one of her hands, and you're fighting. You cannot represent it in any other way. So this image can only represent this story. Makes sense? So this is a reference of it's a Puranic story referred here. This is another story. This is of Lubdaka. Lubdaka, he's a hunter. He's in the jungle. Night falls. He climbs on a bilwa tree, and to prevent falling asleep, he throws the leaves on the ground, the bilwa leaves, and that counts as a prayer to Shiva, and that's essentially what Shivaratri is. That's why you remain awake. Okay, so this represents Bilwa's the Lubdaka story and the whole Shivaratri concept. This story is from Panchatantra. This is a jar. I don't have the picture of the actual jar, but this is a painting on a painted pottery, and there is a crow, and there's a jar of water, and the deer. So the story in Panchatantra is the deer could not get the water because the mouth is too narrow, and the crow put some rocks, and the water level comes up and drinks it. Okay, so this is also in the Indus pottery. This is a famous Pashupati seal, and this is some researcher has already figured out what this represents. This represents Shiva from the Shanti Parva and Anushasana Parva of Mahabharata, as described. Okay, so he has 3 heads, so it's 3 Shirsha, and they represent past, present, and future. And he has Urdhvalinga, which you can see there. He's Yoga Dhyakshaka, okay, which is sitting in the yoga position. That, by the way, is an advanced form of Mula Bandhasana, where your heels are facing out and your toes are touching your pelvis. Okay, it's very, very hard to do. That is not an accidental or coincidental thing. It is 100% proof of yoga. I actually did not believe this could be done until I saw a video on YouTube. Okay. So there are people who do it today as well. Okay. So then his Pashupati, his all those 4 animals there, they are his rupas. Okay. Vyala Rupa is elephant, Shardula Rupa is tiger, and Gandin is the rhinoceros, and Vrashabha thing is Mahisha is that buffalo. So they are all his names, and those names actually have meaning in Sanskrit. So Vyala means stylish, Shardula means eminent, Mahisha means powerful or great. Okay. So that is how the names are, and that's why the symbols represented. So he's also shrunk in, as you can see, has horns. His kapardin, you see, he has those hair. He has snake skin on his chest. He has long nails, which is also, I forget the actual Sanskrit term for it, but he has long nails. He has Hiranyabahu is in many seals you'll see his arms are shining. They have put some thing on it that makes it look good. So the Hiranyabahu is got golden arms. Okay. Digvasa, which means he's not wearing any clothes. Okay. So all of these, essentially every item here, every single piece is a reference to Shiva somewhere, either in Puranas or. So that makes it pretty clear that this is a continuation of Okay, now what are the seals used for? So we know the inscriptions, we have read it, we know what they refer to, but what are they used for? So when I saw this cover of this book, it reminded me that so many Indus seals look like this. Okay. And the tablets, which are the impressions of the seals, they show signs of wear, like they're circulated. So I believe they are coins, and we can know that because you see this Indus motif on the left, you see that on the right is the oldest coin in India. So I think it's a Maurya coin. It's what's called the bent bar. It has the same patterns of the Ashwatha leaves and the sun. It's a combined sun Ashwatha leaves symbol. This thing we just saw earlier, this motif is continued in the Maurya coin. As you can see, those 3 people with the bun hairstyle, which even until the 20th century, the The Thia people in Kerala used to wear that bun. The men would wear the bun on the side. And this motif has continued for a while. So, Seleucus I, his symbol of his monarchy was a horned horse with horns. So you see that is pretty much what you have. And on the right, you see from Gandhara, it's a little worn out, but you can see the elephant and horse as symbols of royal authority. This on the left is a copper coin from I think Eastern India. It's a cast copper coin, and and in the center is a gold coin, and they essentially look very similar to the bull, the Indus bull coin, Indus bull seal. More coins. This is from 2200 BC. And here is one more with what looks like a unicorn itself, which it has a thing coming out of his forehead. This is from Kaushambi. Then this is the other side of the same coin. So this is called a railed tree. So you see the little fence around the base of the tree. So you have the same symbol in the Indus seal over there. You have at the base you have that fence, and they also have the swastika and all the other Indus symbols. Okay, so what is this thing in front of the unicorn? So I think it's a yupa. It's a yupa because on the left we have the Samudragupta's coin, where it's definitely a yupa. This is a more recent yupa, and it has ropes. And the ropes is used to suffocate the animal. That's how the animals were sacrificed. Before the rope was used, they used to cut the animal to sacrifice it. So it's possible that the Indus seal represents a time when the rope was not used, and by the time of Samudragupta, they had switched to using a rope. This is another coin. This is an iron coin of you can see it's just Shiva and the rail tree. It's essentially worshipping Shiva as Ashwata. So you see that similar seal in Indus. Okay, so this is a very important seal. So do you guys know what this animal is?
Krishna Mriga, the black buck.
Yes, it's the black buck. Very good.
It is very significant for the Vedic civilization. This is
exactly.
It comes in the
yeah. So so on the right is a Mohenjo-daro seal with 2 black bucks. Okay, and this seal, and what you said, Ajay, is this this is the shloka from Manusmriti, which says the land where the black bucks roam around is the Aryavarta. Okay. So this seal is, you find it all over the Indus Valley, all over the Indus Valley. And on the right, it's actually from Adichannallur in Tamil Nadu. So from north to south, everyone saw themselves as part of the same civilization, symbolized by the black buck. On the left is the oldest seal in Indus Valley. It's from Kunal. It's dated to 4000 BC. And that means the nationhood was defined or already defined in 4000 BCE. And on the right, Adichannallur is 1000 BCE. So from 4000 BCE to 1000 BCE, from north to south, everybody thought themselves as living in Aryavarta. Okay. And this is more examples of the seal. The left one is Lothal, the right is Rehmandari. Rehmandari is presently in Pakistan, Lothal is in Gujarat. And that in the center is from Mohenjo-daro. This is post the, it's I think post, once, even after they stopped making seals, they were still making this. They were making that motif was there. And, so to close it, this, my presentation is over here. And, you guys can ask me some questions.
So this has been such a eye-opening presentation for me, especially the black buck slide was very convincing. But let me ask Vedant if he has questions first, then I will ask my questions to you.
I don't have any questions as such, but sir, your knowledge is truly humongous. This was totally, everything was new to me, and I got to learn a lot from this presentation. especially this black book part. And I forgot the name of those Sundar and Upasundar. Ajay bhaiya, you can continue asking questions because two computer scientists discussing all those mathematics.
Yes.
So I can maybe could we go to the beginning of the presentation where you explained a little bit about the Saraswati River and its eventual drying up and how the drought affected the settlements, etc. Because
Yes.
I have a couple of questions there.
It's taking a while, but let's see.
It's, now maybe till you navigate to the slide, I can already ask the question.
This one, right?
Yes, this is the one. So
Or yeah.
this is the one. So I think I am in agreement with almost everything that you told me, but the uh, information about the drought, that is actually the first time I'm hearing this. As far
Yes.
as I knew, all the settlements along the Ghaggar Hakra or the Saraswati River at that time, where since the Saraswati River was a perennial river, it was a glacier-fed river coming from the Himalayas. I am not sure how significant the effect of water, the rain fed the theory that you propose is
Right.
it was the civilization was dependent on rains, right? And then there was
Yeah.
a drought which they had to abandon the sites.
Right. So you see, the rain did not fall in the desert,
Yes,
and I mean, I'm sure it rains a little bit, but it's not enough to. It's not like the rains in UP and the rains in Rajasthan. There's a huge difference in the
that
quantity.
is true. Okay,
So
so
the um, um, the fluvial deposits from the strontium and all these ions that are used to determine when the rainflow stopped. I think the date is approximately 2200 BC for that also. Okay.
okay,
So
uh,
the rain, because think about it, what happened was there was a global cooling and drying. So your glaciers also froze. They were not melting in summer. Okay. And the rain also stopped. So the even if a little water was coming in, it was not the same that they were used to, and their aquifers and all would still run dry.
okay, that is so then my understanding of the whole history is incorrect then, because in my opinion I thought the Saraswati River dried up for two reasons. One is of course this climate change. The other one was the tectonic shift of the plates themselves, the Indian plate, uh, when it crashes into the Asian plate, and sometime it just pushed further in, and that's how the drying up of the Saraswati River started. This is what I was thinking so
No,
far.
no, that's correct as well. That's also correct. See, a lot of things have happened over 20,000 years. There were two times when the river was, Saraswati River was perennial. One was, I think, 20,000 years to 11,000 years BC, and after that, it starts again, and then kind of stops at 2200 BC. So I don't know that, I don't recall the exact dates. So
Okay, so
for the first time when it stopped being perennial was because of the earthquake and because of the tributaries being captured by other rivers. Sutlej was captured by Indus, and Yamuna was captured by Ganga. So but then some other changes happened and it started flowing again. And then um, during this time 2200, we know that the fluvial deposits from the Himalayas stop. It doesn't mean rainfall led uh,
okay,
flowing was not there, but it would be seasonal and it would vary very, through the year. It would the level of the river would vary greatly.
okay. So the reason I asked this question is because it is, I think, also very controversial. some people think that the Vedic people did not see the perennial Saraswati. And, there is an opinion that exists which says, oh yeah, the river was either dried up already, or it was in its later stages when the Vedic civilizations began. But this clearly tells us that it was actually contrary to this, right?
So it all depends on when you date the Vedas, right?
Yeah.
Because and so I'm not an expert on this, so
Yeah.
I'm
Let's
just
go on.
giving an opinion here.
Yes.
If you look at the Vedas, the only things in the Vedas, the only technology they have is domesticated animals. They have barley. They don't even have wheat. They don't have cotton. They only have wool. And they have ratha, which nobody really knows what it is. It could just be a um, it could be even be an animal, because ratha means anything that moves fast. So so the date, if you say that cotton, when they're asking for, when they're thanking the gods for the blessings that is given to them, they list out everything, and they're listing out only cows, barley. There is no rice. There's no millets. Like in Yajurveda, when they offer their thanks, they list all of this. They say millet, peas, all the agricultural stuff. But in Rigveda, there's only these two. So when did they have wheat? Like Megad had it in 7000 BC. So I don't know when you should expect that in Haryana.
Okay.
Cotton, they had some form of cotton. Megad had in 7000 BC. In 5000 BC, they were exporting it to Israel. So if you look at all of those dates, then if you put the Rigvedic age as pre Harappan, then there's no issue.
Exactly.
Just because they have references to this doesn't mean it was composed during this time. It could be composed before us. And if you look at this Puranic references, Panchatantra references, they are much later than Rigveda. So I would assume that, and also the language, the Vedic language, I don't see any Vedic language specific, glosses in the inscriptions. They all look like they're what we would call classical today. The dual in Vedic is different. In here in classical is different. And there's a bunch of things like that. So if I found the particles are separate, like the "a" is separate from the verb, or if I find any of those things, I would say, yeah, you know what, this is Vedic. But I could not find anything there. The corpus is so small, I cannot guarantee and say this was not Vedic. But all I can say is I don't see signs of Vedic. Something that's very, like injective, subjunctive. None of these things are there. So I cannot say that. All I can say is no signs of Vedic specific language features in the corpus.
Okay, but could that be because it was considered to be a taboo to this udatta anudattas? It was forbidden to put these in writing, right? It was largely.
No, I don't mean the accent. Accent, of course, they may just have not thought of denoting it. I'm talking about there are all these tenses, right? So
Yes.
you have past tense,
Right, okay,
present
yes.
tense. So there's a subjunctive tense that is only present in Vedic. Okay.
Right.
And there's
Linga.
late lakara. There's a kind of a verb conjugation. It's only present in Vedic. So I didn't find any of them. Now, it doesn't mean that they just didn't use it in the inscriptions, maybe for compactness or whatever. So I cannot objectively say that Vedas were pre-Harappan. All I can say is it is possible Vedas were pre-Harappan.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the next question, I think after this you talk a little bit about the migration after the drying up happened, after all of these sites were abandoned, people
Yes.
started moving to different parts of the country where they came south, some of them went eastwards, etc. And probably in the next slide you talk a little bit about genetic evidence as well. Yes, here.
Right.
Uh, So, but my question is, how reliable do you think is genetics to this could be an opinion. I mean, I'm not sure if there is a conclusive answer to this, but do you think genetic history can actually tell us a lot about migratory patterns?
Well, it can tell you people moved. That's basically all it can tell you, like with
Okay.
100% confidence.
But it doesn't
And
tell you the direction in which they moved, right?
no, direction, you require, old samples. If you find, let's say, if you dig up bodies from 2000 BC on both sides, and then you dig up bodies, or you have present day populations. Ideally, you dig up, every 200 to 300 years, you have a body from both sides. Then you can see the direction of the gene flow. I don't know if they have such kind of data. Actually, in India, it's everybody cremated their bodies. It's you don't really get a lot of bodies. But I believe that the landed class in South India have been shown to be from Gujarat, and the ruling, Pandyas and some of these dynasties have been shown to be from Gujarat, which they had claimed for a long time, and they also, it is now can be confirmed by genetics, and the date has been determined to be around, I don't know, 1500 BC, something like this. So as the Indus civilization collapsed, or actually civilization collapsed, the sites collapsed, the civilization just moved. So some
Okay.
people moved to the Gangetic Plain, some people moved to Gujarat, some people moved south, some people may have moved west to the Mitanni order. So Mitanni, you start seeing the cities in 1800 BCE. So if the drying started in 2500 or 2200, there's plenty of time for them to move there and do it. And so, by the way, Ajay, the Saraswats,
I
they have
think I was thinking you'll say that. Okay.
they
Yes.
have a memory
Yeah.
of being from River Saraswati,
Yes.
going to Gujarat. That is why they're settling in Dwarka. That's why they're called Dorkos.
Dorcos. Yes.
Dorkos is a very old word. It uses a Greek ending, os. Okay, so they're Dorkos. And from there, even when Gujarat started dying, you saw in the map earlier, even Gujarat was abandoned. You can see in that center bottom slide there, even Gujarat's sites are abandoned.
Yes.
They moved south and settled in Konkan Goa region. And of course, when Portuguese came, they ran to Karnataka and Kerala. And so that memory is now proven archaeologically and genetically as well.
Yes. That is conclusive. Yes, I agree with you on that, because it applies directly to me and my lineage. That is well taken. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, so the next question is about the graphemes themselves, right? The writing system that we discussed today. Yes, all
Yeah.
of these slides are very beautiful. The question is, I think as a people, we have focused less on, at least if you look at antiquity, we have focused less on transmission of the graphemes, right? The maturation of graphemes, the whole story is missing. But the way that the language is preserved was, of course, vocal and oral transmission of knowledge through, Vedas or lores or Puranas or whatever. So the question is, how did the whole writings of the graphemes, right? So there is a concrete chronology that we can find from Brahmi to modern day Devanagari that we have, which is very abstract.
Right.
But if you look at other languages that which can be used to write Sanskrit, for example, you can write Sanskrit in Kannada, you can write Sanskrit in Telugu, you can write Sanskrit in any Indian language for that matter. My question is, if the Brahmi and eventually the Indus script, if that is the basis for the whole civilizational, all the languages that we have in India today, why did different regions develop a different alphabet? At least the graphemes. Of course, the phonemes, etc., are the same, but the way that we write in Kannada is very different from how is written in Devanagari, for example. Do
Right.
you know
Yeah.
how? Why?
No, this is well known. It's not it's not my research is this is already well known. So essentially the only thing that I have uncovered here is that Brahmi is essentially standardized Indus script. Okay, but
Okay.
once you have Brahmi, so Brahmi evolution also there's a I mean there's a lot of articles on it, but Brahmi evolved over time, and in each region it specialized and became what is the local script today. So you have it captured in every stage. If you look at the oldest Kannada inscriptions, they are very close to Brahmi,
I
and
see.
every 100 years or so they change very very slightly until they become the modern scripts. So your Bengali, Brahmi, Gujarati, Tamil, Punjabi, all of these Devanagari, they are all derived straight from Brahmi. All of them, every one of them. And every stage is preserved because most of this happened in the historic times from post Ashoka. So you have them on coins, you have them on inscriptions, you have them on copper plates in temples. So you can see it stage by stage by stage, and you can see how it changes bit by bit by bit, and becomes the what is the modern script today. So if you really want to standardize script for all of India, just pick the Brahmi script.
Wow.
It would be pretty straightforward. Now they made certain changes they had to make. So for example, Tamil Brahmi is different from Brahmi because they they have another na and they have another la. Okay, their la is like almost ra, right? So
Yeah.
they had to create out of da, they had created it. So it is obvious that Tamil Brahmi was derived from Brahmi and not Brahmi from Tamil Brahmi. Okay, because they have derived letters from existing letters. Whereas in Brahmi, you don't see that. The only derivation here you see is that the Mahapranas are derived from Alpa Pranas, right? So you see
Yes.
Cha is very close, Papa is very close, and so on. So yeah, everything. So Indus script became Brahmi, and Brahmi became all the scripts you have in India today.
So research, yeah, establishes that. And can you tell us the timeline between, okay, when did the Indus script, when was the Indus script used, flourished? When did that flourish? And then how long does it take from that time to the emergence of Brahmi in the Indian subcontinent?
Okay, so it's not like tomorrow Thursday 9 a.m. we're going to switch to Brahmi. That's not what happened.
Yes.
What happened was the standardization seems to have happened uh, over a long time period. So but we know that by the time of Ashoka, the standardization has been complete. In Kiradi, you find around 600 BC, you find only Indus. Around 400 BC or so, you see both Indus and IVC, Indus and Brahmi symbols. And later, after 300 BC, you see mostly Brahmi. So that gives you a window, at least in Tamil Nadu, that is when it changed. Now, if you look at all the inscriptions and so on, a lot of these, I don't know the accuracy of the dating, but there is one anthropomorphic figure from the Copper Horde civilization, which has that mixed Indus Brahmi, and it is dated to 1800 BC. Bibi Lal said that looks very early for Brahmi. Okay,
Yeah.
so he thinks that although the date on the plate is accurate, the inscription may not be accurate. So
Okay.
obviously I don't until someone does an analysis on it, you can't really
Yeah,
figure out
but
the
the
date.
chronology is at least clear that there was Indus script and then there was gradual changes and abstractions over it, which
Right.
led to the creation of Brahmi. That is at least clear with your research.
Yeah, it's clear, and it's at least in Kiradi we have the exact dates as well. From it changed sometime between 600 and 300 BC. That's when it changed.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, at least in South India we know the dates.
Okay. And then there was a slide on Qutub Minar somewhere, but it appeared to be like a temple pillar or so. This is on the Qutub complex, not on the Qutub Minar itself, right? If I'm
No,
not
it's not
wrong,
on the
the
Minar.
slide that you.
Yeah, I think this is the one you're talking about.
Yes. Okay,
Right.
fine.
So on the bottom left there you have I think it's a Brahmi, and the what looks like in the center bottom, what looks like a H, that's actually the Ma sign, and in the top left you have the Ra sign of Indus. So you
Yes.
do have those symbols, and it just looks like these were pre-existing, and they just pick the rocks to build whatever they're building,
Yeah.
and they didn't bother to erase it or something.
Okay. So then moving on to the next question is, so now in the modern day Brahmi, like the Devanagari or any Indian language, we have roughly 47 characters in the alphabet, right? Which is 13 vowels and 33 consonants or so. And then whatever is remaining, it is all composite symbols. So how big was the corpus of the Indus, like the size of the alphabet?
So it depends on how you classify it, right? So in terms of what you have, the way I classify it is there is about 75 symbols, out of which 70 are basic symbols, and these 70 represents around 2024 values, and then the rest are composite signs, which represent two, like it's a diagram or occasionally a trigram. So for example, a symbol for tha and a symbol for ra is mixed together, and you would read it as tra. Okay.
Yeah.
So it has about 20 different letters, 20 to 25 different sound values, represented by about 70 different graphemes.
And do you see any classification of these letters in any form, like how we have today, like a proper organization of ka kha ga gana, where you start from your throat and then eventually it comes to the base of your mouth? The
Well, they don't
organization
have
happened much.
they don't have that. They don't have a tutorial thing anywhere, so they only have actual inscriptions.
Okay.
So if there was like something, if you found a slate where
Yeah.
they were teaching kids, then we could say, yeah, they should teach it in this order. But
Alright.
but I think by the time they had Brahmi, it was already done.
Yeah.
It looks that way.
All right. And then right now coming to your method, right? The method that you have treated it as a cryptogram. At least I am convinced that cryptograms have unique solutions. It doesn't take much to, since it exists, the method itself exists. You just applied it to this. I'm actually very sold on this methodology that you've presented. But I still have a question. When you decipher different seals or symbols, does your method produce gibberish? Could be, some artifact, something that is missing, some symbol that is lost now.
Right. So so there are fragments of seals which have half an inscription that you can't really read. You will or you cannot read it with certainty. For example, you see kara, right, and then the rest of the seal is broken. Then you can't read. You don't know what they're trying to write.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, pretty much I've not read all the indices. I've read about 12% of them, about 500. There are about 4,100 or something total. Out of these, I think there's only one that in the actual Indus Valley that I'm not sure that I've read correctly. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Wow.
the seals from Mesopotamia, these seals, they cannot be read as Sanskrit.
Yeah.
But these can be read as Sumerian or Akkadian. So, for example, this number 24 here in the center top, It is ma. All the four, the two persons and the two sticks, they are and that fish is ma. That is not a that's not a that kind of sound you don't have in Indic languages, but that is in I believe Sumerian. That's a word from Sumerian. And the number 56 here, the anan, that is, it means under the power of the sky god or something.
Okay.
So so all of these have, I don't recall this because it's not a language I know. I have to look, I have to look up what I've translated. But all of these, their signs in Mesopotamia, you can read them as either Sumerian or Old Akkadian. So it would be gibberish in Sanskrit.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. Right. That is interesting. I'm thinking how it might have happened, but it might be more complicated than I think. Yeah, I'll just move on to the next question.
Right?
Coming to the
So that's from a paper which talks about export of Indus sealing technology to Mesopotamia. And initially, the Indus was exporting seals without any writing. They were creating seals, and so essentially, the seals are currency. These guys were creating those things for them. And so, I mean, you may recall that even till like I think 60 or some years ago, the Gulf was using Indian rupee as currency, the Gulf countries. So it's the same thing. These guys were also using the Indian thing as currency, but you didn't have writing. But eventually, these guys must have started writing whatever they wanted.
Oh wow, I did not know this. This is I will look it up. But this is fantastic. Okay. So now coming to the references to the Puranas, you mentioned two stories of one is Tilottama's story, the other one is Lubdhaka's story. But can you show the seal again, because I have a specific question. I think we also discussed this one other time offline. If you could go to that slide where you have that seal of Lubdhaka.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yes, I think it's. No, I think you passed it.
I passed it?
Yes, I think you did.
No.
Okay, it's in the.
No, it must be at the end.
Okay.
I'll find it. This one?
Yeah, no, the next one. This is very clear to me. The story and the representation symbology. Okay, here. So if I am not, I don't know if I don't know the primary sources, but the way that I was taught the story is that there is a linga at the bottom of the tree which Lubdaka doesn't see. Right,
Yeah.
and then he just the leaves he just he just throws the leaves down, and then it becomes an offering unknowingly to Ishvara, and then Ishvara comes and saves him, right? But in the seal we don't see this linga. So could it be that the concept of this linga came after maybe in the later stage in the civilization?
Good question. So they did find linga in a couple of sites, or something they think are lingas, but I've not seen any linga in any seals. So yeah, it's possible that the concept came later.
Okay. And among the seals themselves, we see a lot of references to Pashupati or Shiva, right? The deity that we know today as Shiva. We see a lot of references, at least you could say that they're primitive ideas of a Shiva.
I don't think it's primitive. I think it's very well developed. So if you saw
it's very
that,
well developed.
if you saw that Pashupati seal, right?
Yes.
All it's very well developed, and they had a very good idea of what. I wouldn't say it's very different from what we have today.
That's true. But are there any references to other gods? Could be
Yes.
Vishnu or Ganapati or
And there's no Ganapati, there is Indra.
Indra.
For the rain things, they typically invoke Indra. And there's a reference to a Rigvedic story where Indra rescues the sleeping son of the person called Nami, and so he was sleeping and he's rescued. So that reference is there in one of the scenes. So Indra definitely is there, and the word they used to refer to Shiva is actually Ravi. Ravi is a vocative of Ravin. And Ravin is one who roars or one who kills. And I believe that to the Indus people, from the Katha Aranyaka, there's a story where Shiva says, I am Rudra, I am Aditya, I am Indra. So essentially, for the Indus people, it looks like all these three deities are essentially three theonyms of the same, or three aspects of the same deity. So they, so that is, I think that could be the origin of Ravi for sun. Is essentially it comes from the name for Shiva.
Okay. And I think if we move further on in your presentation, you showed us the famous unicorn seal, which has captured the imagination of, at least in movies today.
Oh, you have it in movies these days?
No, I mean there was a movie on Mohenjo-daro which captures the whole idea of this Ek Singha, right? The concept. Hrithik Roshan plays a proto man from that time,
Yeah.
and then he goes in search of the. Anyway, so this is a Bollywood recreation. But my question is, what animal do you think it is actually? Because it cannot be a unicorn, right?
Right. It's a good question. So in Vedic scripture, Agni is referred to as the horned one who opens forth, something like that. So the horns, the serrated horns, they are very, very similar to a deer horn. Not the black buck, but many deer have this kind of serrated horn. And there are deer that have a mane and they kind of look like this. So the animal that has most of these features here is a deer. But my guess is that this is essentially a symbol of the state, just like it started with black buck.
Yeah.
And then eventually maybe 2 or 3 states merged, and they merged their totem animal also, and created an animal with all the characteristics of what looks like a bull, a horse, and goat. Sorry, and a deer. So that is just a guess. This is, nobody knows what it represents. But there is no animal with the features that look exactly like this. The closest is a deer, which has all the features. Everything is where it should be. The legs are a little short for any animal. I don't think that's just a space thing.
Yeah.
So what you said about Agni, there's a temple in Maharashtra at Pateshwar where see the Agnis. Takes into camera. The Agni is symbolized like this. This is the face of Agni, and as you spoke of 2 horns, so there are 2 horns.
Right.
I don't know if it is visible clearly or not, but
It is
you can
visible.
search Pateshwar.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like that goat face and mix of horse, something which you said. This is the full picture of that.
Right. And I think it could be that Seleucus I had as a horned horse as his royal symbol. This could just be a royal symbol. Like there was no horned horse during Seleucus' time, so it doesn't have to be a horned animal. It's just the symbol of their monarchy or their state.
Yeah,
That's
it's
all it
something
is.
like what Hoysalas had. It's just an imaginative representation of something.
Right.
It stands.
It's a symbol of the state, and especially if these things are coins, then you on the coins issued by the government, you usually have symbol of the state.
And then finally, I just want to end the question and answer with one last question. You mentioned that the nationhood was already defined because we see Brahmi, we see the black buck, the black buck seal in Tamil Nadu, in West Bengal, in at least definitely in the northern plains, and very much in the southern states as well. So, do you think at that time, I'm not saying this could be again an opinion, but when you say a nation, there are two aspects to a nation, right? There is a political aspect and there is a cultural aspect to the nation.
Right.
In your opinion, what nation did all of these ancient people belong to? Is it the political India or the sort of the cultural India that we
Right. So
can
at
think of?
least I think this was the Rashtra, it's a cultural thing. We know that all of them traded and they had, so you see the Indus script in
Yes.
Tamil Nadu, you see the coins, Mauryan coins in Tamil Nadu. So from coins from the east, the script from the west, you see the stones from the south going into parts made in the Indus Valley. You see the iron technology moving from Deccan to. So I think culturally and trade-wise they were kind of united, but the state itself, I think, uh, it doesn't look like the south and the north had the same state, because we haven't seen any unicorn like seals in the south yet. Okay.
Yes.
If
Okay.
we find a lot more, if you find more stuff, then you can kind of guess, yeah, things that are associated with the state, like money, maybe some kind of royal burial or whatever. If you find a lot of them, you don't even have to find a lot of them. Let's say if you find 5 or 6, you could definitely make that conclusion that it was politically united, but definitely it was culturally united.
Yes.
And the Janapadas and all came later, right, in 800 BC after. So Indus may have been one state because it seems very, very uniform. You see the same inscriptions in different sites across hundreds of years. Something that is written in 2600 BC in one place, you may find it in a different site in 2200, 100, 200 years later. So their symbols, and there is no geography or time variation in the unicorn seal or any of that. It was present in all sites across all times. So at least the Indus seemed to be also politically united. So even though we don't know much about the political organization, based on their trade, based on their symbols of the state and all of that, we can assume that they were politically one unit, and the rest of them may be small, republics or city states, or even just Neolithic, in the very early times, like around 3000 BC. Rest of the
Yeah.
country is probably just Neolithic.
Yeah. Very sparsely populated as well.
Right.
This concentration of population was more towards the rivers on the north, which makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, well, that's all I had, at least question wise, and it's been a fantastic presentation, and the discussion was also very good.
So before conclusion of this podcast, sir, can you please explain about the logo, your DP, the seal which you have?
Right. Yeah, that's essentially, there's a seal in the Indus. It's broken. It has from a central mouth, you have 6 heads coming out, and the heads are different animals. So that is a broken seal, and this particular thing was created for some event by some someone else, and they put this, whatever's missing, they imagined it, and they took an inscription from some other seal and they added it here. They changed one letter, so it's, I can tell because it doesn't read properly. The original inscription you can read properly. The in the center there is actually what looks like teeth, so it's mouth of Shiva, and from mouth of Shiva 6 um, I think something comes out. 6 I forgot the details, but so it's a, it represents that. And all of those are different, aspects of Shiva, right? The Vyala Rupa and all that stuff. So that is, so I just picked that and just put it as my logo.
It's beautiful. Okay, then Vedant,
Okay,
you
thank
can
you so much.
conclude.
Thanks for having me.
It
Yes.
was it was a great learning for me and for Ajay here also. Thank you so much, Ajna Devanji, for your time that you came, and we hope that we should more such of podcast with you where we all get to learn such detailed knowledge and with a proper flow. And we hope to create a series with you. I hope you are okay with that.
Yeah, well, let's do that.
Yes. Ajay, bhaiya, do you want to say something?
No, I think we can stop the recording now, and then this is the conclusion of the podcast.
So thank you so much, viewers, if you're still here and watching. Thank you so much. And we hope that you get to learn something from this podcast. And if you like the podcast, don't forget to comment so that Yajna Devamji also sees. And if you have any questions, pin down in the comments so we can ask the questions in the next podcast to him.
So
Thank you
I
so much.
have a request along with this. So people who are interested in knowing more, I think Yajna Devam has a concentrated effort of actually popularizing this. You can join the Discord channel that he has started,
Mm.
and quite a lot of people already are there. They're active. They discuss these theories. They discuss. It's very scholarly, I should say. And if people whoever is interested, I would urge everybody to join this Discord channel and get into the discussion and get to know more about these seals, get familiarized with the history, etc. So if Yajnadevam has to say, I mean, if you could drop a link or something, we could put it in the description of the YouTube video.
Yes,
Yes, in
definitely.
description also in the pinned comment we can. So it goes easier for
Yeah.
the audience to.
Okay.
So
So with that, I would like to conclude the session.
All right.
thank you so much, everyone. Jai Shri Krishna. So I'm ending the recording.
Okay.